All right, here we go for TWiP episode, what are we, 526 now. Okay, let's let the stream get started, and I'll go ahead and start the show. All right, folks, if you are in the chat, if you're in the chat room, go ahead and sound off in the chat, both Giulio, myself, as This Week in Photo, and what's your name? Oh, Craig Colvin. Craig Colvin.
I answer to many things.
Craig Colvin's in there, and Christopher Berry is our community manager. He is in there managing the community. So go ahead and get in there. Chris is going to help cull questions and throw them into our Google Doc for us, which I guess I should probably share with him, which I'll do in a second, Chris, and then when we get to that segment, we will answer your questions, if any. All right, so here we go. Gonna start the show. Stand by. Quiet on set. All right, folks, welcome back to another episode of This Week in Photo. I'm your host, Frederick Van Johnson. Today on the show is a hot button topic, and it's all about mobile photography, among other things, but mobile photography from the slant of, is mobile ready to replace traditional photography or for traditional cameras in the world of professional photography? Some people say yes. Some people say hell no. So we're going to find out what the topic is. First up, joining me to dive into this is my good buddy, Mr. Craig Colvin. Craig,
hi.
What's going on, man? Welcome.
Glad to be here. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. You've been running around jumping on icebergs and
I have.
Injuring models and stuff.
I have. I spent 11 days in Iceland photographing models. There were 5 models over those 11 days. And Iceland is wonderful. You can basically point your camera in any direction and take a great shot. The landscapes there are just spectacular.
I love it. You got to go to where the photos are, man. You got to go to where the photos are. Well, welcome to the show, man. I'm looking forward to hearing your opinion on these topics.
Yeah, glad to be here.
All right. Speaking of opinionated, it's the always opinionated Mr. Giulio Sciorio, but your opinions are valid. So what's up, man? Welcome.
I have an opinion. I matter. It's the internet.
Right. What's going on with you, man? You've been busy. I've been following you on social. You're doing all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I've been hustling, man. I'm with small camera, big picture, and haven't been shooting, which has been kind of driving me a little crazy. But what's going on is good stuff. So I'm pretty excited.
That's good. Good. I love it. Well, cool. Well, we've got a lot of stuff to talk about on this show. Before we do that, in the notes, I don't know if you guys saw in the notes, I wanted to give you guys a chance to kind of run through a couple of things that you're working on and or promote the things that you're working on. Craig, let's start with you, man. What do you want to like highlight or draw a circle around for the TWiP audience?
So I'm doing my Utah Adventure photo tour coming up at the end of August. I think it's August 23rd. It's 6 days with 3 models all over southern Utah and Great Salt Lake and Salt Flats. It's a great time, and I think we still have a couple openings available for that.
Very cool.
So utadventure.com.
utadventure.com. Cool. And Giulio Sciorio, man, what about you? What's going on in your world that you want to tell people about and otherwise promote?
Well, I'm actually very excited to be launching a small group coaching program called Finding the Photographer's Vision. It's something I've been working on for a while, and it's taking all the tools and the technologies I've developed since I started as a professional, as far as helping people align their vision and create their best work. And some people, they're like, I got this great camera. It takes really good pictures, but I'm unfulfilled, and it's not really saying anything. So it's a pretty in-depth course for 4 weeks, and I'm going to launch it at a special price because I need to get people in there to beta test it for me, basically.
Cool. All right. Well,
yeah, it's going to be awesome.
Let me know when you're ready to launch it. I'll raise the flag about it. So.
Cool.
Cool. Awesome. All right. And me, I actually have something to talk about. I never have anything to talk about in this segment. This segment I have something to talk about. I am extremely proud and honored and humbled to announce that I've been selected to be the keynote speaker for the upcoming F64 Live conference down in Riverside, California. You can check it out at f64live.com. The conference organizers, my friend Troy Miller, is sort of positioning this conference as the unconference. So it is, instead of, sitting in classrooms and learning and then leaving and trying to put the stuff into action, it's actually, he's actually hiring models and building sets where the individual instructors will come in and teach on the sets instead of the sort of presentations. Hopefully, I think the only boring presentation will be me at the beginning. So everything else is cool. Plus, there are tacos involved. I can't say anything more than that, but there are tacos involved. It should be fun. So Troy is throwing down a 10% discount if you sign up for this thing. It's $99 anyway, but you get 10% off of that with the code F64 AUG10 because it's August 10th. So F64AUG10, and that'll knock 10% off at f64live.com. All right, guys.
And where is that, Frederick?
It's in Riverside, California.
Okay.
So down in the Inland Empire in Los Angeles. Thanks. All right, guys, let's dive into this featured topic thing. This is we've been looking forward to this. Giulio, you've been stirring the pot on social media. I've been watching you, man. I've been watching what you've been posting. So here's the issue. So Adobe started this conversation with the announcement a couple of days ago, or maybe it was last week, but with this recent announcement that they are bringing the full version, not Photoshop Lite, not Photoshop Mobile, not whatever. They're bringing the full version of Photoshop to the iPad. And I would assume maybe in the future, sensibly, the iPhone as well, but to the iPad, right? So which changes a lot of things depending on their implementation of Photoshop. If it is, in fact, the real Photoshop with levels and channels and layers and all this other stuff that we've become used to, and the horsepower on the iPad is enough to let you do real work with no compromises. And I mean compromises like, well, I could do this, but I'm on an iPad. If you cannot have those kind of compromises, I think it's viable. Giulio, I want to start with you, though, man. You come at this, you are the throw the baby into the pool guy when it comes to technology. Submerge yourself and marinate in all that is new, and which is what I love about you. So tell me what you think about this. First start off, let's not bury the lead. Is photography, or pro level photography, meaning stuff that you're going to sell to a client, is that possible on mobile devices these days?
Yeah, it's been happening for years, actually. Sometimes it happens as a gimmick. Other times it happens just because it's the tool that happens to be there. It's just it's like any other camera, and sometimes it's a mix of things. Like there was a young lady, she was like 28 years old from Germany last year, that did 12 covers for Time Magazine with her iPhone 7, and they look beautiful. Now the technician that has a camera will look at that and say, well, it's not sharp in a dynamic range, or The consumer, that's who the image is aimed at, will look at that and say, that's a beautiful portrait of Oprah, or that's a beautiful portrait of Hillary Clinton. And they won't even consider, wow, was that shot on a phone? It's like no one cares, because we're at this point now where the technology is so good that we're no longer using flash bulbs and putting a curtain over our head. And
hey, speak for yourself. Speak for yourself.
For the majority of us, those things are still there, and they're there for various reasons. But we're totally there. We're totally there. It may not be for everybody, but as far as a viable tool, it's definitely there.
And I agree with that. I agree that everything you just said in the lesson, it's there. It could be there for everybody, depending on Photoshop, obviously. Could be there for everyone. But there are tools that are out there now that are on mobile that are awesome and in some ways better than Photoshop. So let's say the tools are there. But then there are certain things that I think you can't do on mobile, and I don't know if you'll ever be able to do them on mobile. And I don't even know if you should be force-fitting yourself into trying to do them on mobile. And I want to get into that a little bit later. But, Craig, I want to give you a chance to respond as well, man. What do you think? For the kind of work that you do, can you see yourself in Iceland with no computer and just a tablet?
Probably not. I mean, I do use my tablet occasionally to do some quick edits to post on Instagram or Facebook while I'm traveling, but it's just rudimentary stuff. I like having a big screen when I edit. I like having, not using my finger. Maybe if I was using a pen, I would have more control on the tablet. But yeah. I just don't see myself using a tablet long term for doing my photos.
All right, we got a cage fight then. We got a cage fight. Giulio, I don't know if you heard it, but Craig says that he'll believe anything you're saying. I'm not instigating anything.
I totally want to put on my wrestler voice and be like, Frederick, I'm going to tell you about the iPad. No, I mean, I think Craig makes some really good points. I mean, the big screens are nice, and sometimes trying to edit on the screen like this, and I'm like, it's kind of tough. Yeah. So then I just turn it off, turn on my iPad, it's synced, and I get back to work. Or then I turn on my MacBook Pro on my 27-inch display, and I get to work. I mean, it's really, Craig's been shooting for years, and so it seems like he's got his workflow down, his vision down. So once you have that down, then you just know what tools go into it. Other people that are still along that path and still getting to that point should definitely try it out. And like you said, don't force fit it, but definitely try it out and be aware of the technology and what works for you and what doesn't, and then just kind of see how it goes. I mean, I tried to force fit it a couple years ago when I had a Surface Pro 3, and it was tough.
I remember that because you were hot and heavy on that Surface Pro. You're like, dude, this thing's amazing. I can't believe it. That was 1 month. Then 2 months later, you're like, you know anybody who wants to buy a Surface Pro?
Well, I really had high hopes for it, and I think the, just like the iPad at the time, we're waiting for the software, and now we got stuff like Affinity Designer, Affinity Photo, and there's like Raw Photo on iOS, and a variety of other tools. And then of course, the big thing with Adobe, so Adobe, and like any of these big companies, they don't make these decisions on a whim. They're not like, you know what, I have an idea. Let's put all this money into making an iPad full version of Photoshop. It's data driven, right? And it's driven by their customers' demand. So that is going to transform things. And the other thing is that it's not just Photoshop. That they said specifically Photoshop, but they said that is the beginning of these other apps, and it's because they're having to rewrite the code. So when you hear Adobe Rush, think Adobe Premiere Pro, because I think what happened was that Adobe kind of learned their lesson with the rollout of CC/mobile/classic, which is still kind of confusing. Is it mobile classic?
Still don't know what's right. Yeah.
I'm like, it's freaking Lightroom, and it's, I love it, but So I think that they kind of learned from their mistakes and have gone forward. The phone it's not even the future of photography; it's the now. There's far more people creating with a phone than with a camera, but it doesn't mean that cameras are going away. Yeah, it's just like saying well, there's a lot of people making music with an iPhone or iPad, but people still play piano and guitar. It's not going away.
Like I was saying on TWiP Pro, we were doing that dialogue back and forth on TWiP Pro about the and versus the or, right? And how it seems like, one of the symptoms of being a photographer or the side effects is we tend to shift into or. Maybe it's just being a human. We tend to think in terms of or, like JPEG or RAW, Nikon or Canon, mirrorless or full frame, when the reality is that shouldn't be driving your choices. The choices should be driven by the destination and what tool you need to get to the destination, So I want to put a finer point on this as well, or put a data point in here. Julie, I want to have you continue on this real quick, and then Craig, I want to have you chime in. But Trevor in the chat room is talking about that the iPhone sensors are small, and from a physics perspective, obviously you're going to have challenges, depth of field, all that stuff. Computational photography notwithstanding, it can't do everything proper glass can do, right? But so, Giulio, with the workflow that you're describing, when you're moving into a mobile-centric primary mobile workflow, you're not talking about shooting with the camera on the device, are you? Or are you? Are you talking about shooting with with another device and then bringing it in and doing your post-processing on the device?
Well, I think both. I mean, when I shoot on my iPhone, I don't use any accessory lenses. I used to use a DxO1. I don't use that anymore. I use just the 2 cameras that are in it, and I shoot like that, and then I go ahead and edit right on the phone, or I'll wait till it syncs up and then I'll edit in Lightroom CC on my iPad Pro. Or if I find that what I'm going after for a particular shot or shoot requires a dedicated camera, I will use whatever dedicated camera is necessary per my vision, and then I will just download to the device on the spot and start working right there. Yeah. I just find that workflow to be super handy. I mean, every time I deliver a job, because I deliver through Lightroom Mobile too, and the clients are like, "This is so fast and so awesome." They're like, "I'm like, when do you want them?" They're like, "Well, we're going to need them in like a week." I'm like, "Okay," and like I give it to them like the next day, and they're like, minds are blown. It's because I sync it to the cloud, and then maybe I'm in line getting a coffee, and I'm like, oh, let me just pull up that collection real quick and just flag them.
You're screwing it up for the rest of us, though, Giulio.
No,
you're setting a precedent. Like, people will be like, well, that Giulio guy had it done before I got out of traffic on the way home from the shoot. Like, what can you? Why are you telling me 2 weeks for this? Yeah.
Well, here's the thing: is I steal my ideas from like the 17-year-olds and the 16-year-olds I see at the Apple Store.
Yep.
You know, they're like, I don't even have a computer. I have an iPhone and an iPad, and they're doing this crazy work. And I'm like, damn, you made that on a phone? And I'm like, let me go get my Pro Prong cane and put my tennis balls on it because I'm done, you know?
Hey, don't hate on those. Those work really well. But Craig, I want to have you chime in on this. So I want to switch the direction of the conversation a little bit over to just perception, right? And we've had this conversation on This Week in Photo before, when in the context of full frame proper or DSLRs, right? And mirrorless cameras, and how if you're a pro photographer and someone sees you roll up with a little tiny mirrorless camera on a professional shoot that they're paying your crazy day rate for, they're going to be like, well, hey, my Uncle Bob has a camera that's better than that, and I'm paying you how much? So if you fast forward to now, and or the G future, let's call it the G future. You fast forward to the G future, and you roll up with your iPhone, you're like, you know what? It's about me. I can get work just as good as Annie Leibovitz with this iPhone 10. Is that going to diminish the price perception or the value of your work? What do you think?
Well, it's going to vary by the client, but I do believe that we're getting more and more where the client is more about what work you've had in the past, right? Mm-hmm. If you have a portfolio and that's awesome, and you just say, I've shot all those on the iPhone, they're going to hire you to do that same thing and expect you to use the iPhone. Yeah. One of this Iceland, when I was there, another photographer was there with me, and he shot a lot of things on the iPhone, and they were just amazing photos. I saw his portfolio before I knew that he had done them on iPhone.
Wow.
And
that wasn't his only camera, though, right? He had a DSLR as well, but he probably shot 50% of them on the iPhone. Okay. And just does amazing work with it, right? So if they have not seen your work and you just show up with an iPhone, there may be some problems. But if they're hiring you because of your portfolio and you tell them, I did this on the iPhone, I think that mitigates that somewhat. Yeah. Julia, what are the limitations, though? I mean, it can't be all bells and whistles and unicorns and rainbows, right?
Here's the thing is, if all things are equal, image quality wise, just pretend that somehow the iPhone 11T S plus comes out and it produces what you would get on a let's just say a medium format Fuji or whatever, and you're like, damn, this is great. What it won't replace are the physical buttons, and won't replace that user experience, and won't replace, I don't know, being able to turn your phone on or your camera on and I get a phone call, right? Yeah. You're gonna turn your camera on and get hit with a robocall. It's not gonna replace those things. So it's just a different experience, and you get different effects. So back in 2010, when I started getting into mirrorless, and people were like, what are you doing shooting with that small little silver camera with the red wrap? You're an idiot. And I'm like, dude, I'm getting so much more out of this than I would out of DSLR. And it was mainly because I'm a portrait photographer showing up and photographing somebody with a camera that looked fun and different. They became relaxed. Their true personality came out. And at that point, getting that that image, that content was far more important than it's a stop more noisy than my 5D or whatever. And it's even more so with the iPhone. So what I get with my iPhone 10 image quality wise is about what I would get with a Micro Four Thirds camera in 2010, 2011. The difference is because everybody's got a smartphone. Then when you go to take a picture of somebody, they're totally chill. Yeah. They're more so than even with a camera. So if you want to get truly candid portraits, even if you see somebody, see, wow, you look amazing, you have your phone out anyways, because Rose was messing with her phone. He goes, snap. You got a raw HDR. If you set that in Lightroom, I almost said mobile and CC, and you got just a baller looking shot. And then what I also do is I'll carry my Instax with me. I'm like, hey, you want a copy? Like, sure, boom, hard copy. And now you've got a really cool connection with another person. And
it's all in one little camera bag, right?
Yeah. Or in your pocket, because the Instax is so tiny. So it's just it's a different experience. Like, I find that when I want to connect at a deeper level with a person, I'm going to go out and photograph with my phone. If they're a younger crowd, though, sometimes I'll take my X Pro 1 because people like the way that looks. It looks so different than a DSLR, and then that gets a different experience or a different.
Is that part of it though? I mean, we talked about this before. I mean, is part of the job of the, let's call it the professional photographer, right? To orchestrate theater, for the end client, or Craig, we can jump over to you in the case of the model, right? I mean, you're shooting these models and they're being shot by all kinds of photographers before you got to them. In the case of switching to G World and you're fully mobile, you can have that, Giulio, by the way. It's all yours. If you're shifting over to G World, are the models going to take you seriously? Or are they going to be like, oh, really? This is one of those dudes that just showed up to see me naked or whatever, right?
Right. Well, I think it goes back to if they've seen your work before or not. I shot a model yesterday, and she had the discussion that she models differently depending upon the how she knows the photos are going to come out from the photographer. So if she looks and somebody doesn't have a good portfolio, and she says, I kind of check out a little bit because I know I'm not going to get any good photos out of this. Yeah. But if they have an awesome portfolio, she works harder, she concentrates and tries to give her A game. So I guess the same thing. If you just tell her this is how I've shot these with this mirrorless camera or this phone, I don't think they're going to really care. It's more about your work.
Yeah, that's interesting, because and then part of it I think is psychology for the photographer themselves as well, right? Because we all ain't G, right? So jumping into a situation like that where you're used to having that barrier of glass and metal and supercomputer between you and the model that you can hide behind, and she can't see what you're doing, and
right.
Depending on your personality type, it lets you hide, right, and lets you come out of your shell more to take the picture because you're seeing life through TTL, right?
Right.
So Giulio, what about that aspect? Does this just mean only cool guys that are extroverted can use iPhone for professional photography?
I'm quite introverted until I'm either behind a camera or in front of a camera or talking about something I love, which is photography, with my friends. But I will say that shooting on an iPhone seriously is really weird. I don't want to say it feels like you're naked, but it kind of feels like you're naked. And mainly to your point of like not being able to hide, like, because I shoot it with Lightroom CC, and it doesn't do portrait mode, so I have all my apps closed except for the default camera and Lightroom CC. So I'm like, and then I flip over and and I just keep hitting a button as fast as I can. The phone crashes. I'm holding filters up flat against the case and all this stuff. And it's almost like, it's kind of like playing a video game. And I'm just trying to, I'm working with the talent and I'm moving around them, because imagine having a screen like this on your camera. Oh my God, it'd be freaking amazing. Right. So I'm having this amazing screen, and I can move around and I can see all the effects in real time, and I'm just capturing what looks good until the apps crash, because they crash frequently when you're really pushing it hard. It is a different feeling, but it's more, it feels basically like if you anyone can try this even without taking pictures with your phone. Just practice with a friend of yours. Say, I'm going to direct you and tell you what to do for just even a minute without even anything in your hand. It feels weird, It feels weird. But the talent, here's the benefit of this though. When the talent sees the images and they see them right away on the phone, and it look far better than probably most anything they've ever got from another photographer with a dedicated camera, then they know they're like, dude, this dude is like freaking kung fu master. Yeah. And then there's no question that you are a boss,
And what are you shooting? I mean, when you're like format wise, because and we're going to address this in the Q&A. I know Trevor had a question or a comment about this, but in terms of resolution, right? So his question was in terms of future proofing, but we'll answer that later. But when you're shooting this, you can shoot, obviously if you're shooting with Lightroom on the phone, you can shoot RAW, right? But Giulio, what are you shooting normally? Because back in the day, I remember when you were shooting mirrorless primarily, you were the JPEG with camera styles guy, and get it right at the point of click with very little post processing, if any. Mm-hmm. Have you carried that through, or do you feel like you need the RAW files?
No, I shoot RAW because I like to work more, kind of tweak the dynamic range a little bit. I usually, what I'll do is I'll shoot if the subject's fairly static, I'll shoot the RAW HDR mode in Lightroom Mobile or Lightroom CC, where it basically shoots 3 DNGs and puts them into one package, one DNG. Yeah. And then I'll just kind of do a little, maybe just one brush on their face, and I'll just lift it by a quarter of a stop, maybe a little less. But that's it. The color is more or less done. I don't do a lot of presets. I do a little bit of work with profiles, but very little. It's easy when you have a screen that nice to be able to see what you're getting, and if you don't like it, you just adjust it on the fly. And you don't have to worry about mirror slap or vibrations, or it's like
you bring up a good point though. Thank you. That's on my list, and I have a list to beat you guys up with here. And on the list is color calibration. If we're talking pro work, then color calibration obviously is key, right? Especially if you're working for clients and you're shooting things that need to be spot on, or a particular dress needs to be a particular color. The spider color calibration devices that we all know that we can stick on our Macs or whatever device you use to make sure that you're getting the most accurate color possible. To my knowledge, that world has not made it to mobile devices yet, or am I wrong? Do you guys know?
Well, I'm gonna let Craig start.
Giulio's like color calibration, psh, whatever.
Actually, iPads and iPhones have very good color fidelity. Mm-hmm. They're typically better than a lot of monitors you're going to get for a desktop, just straight out of the box. I have seen some apps that'll let you adjust that and play with it. I've never actually tried them. I've been quite pleased with the color of my devices. They seem very true. What I edit on my desktop that's color calibrated look the same on my iPad.
They do. Okay, that's a good data point. Because one of the things on mobile devices that has bugged me for years, and I don't know if it's just me and the nerd in me that is being bugged by this, but when Apple introduced the True Tone display that changes the color temperature based on the ambient room temperature, I was like, this has got to be a nightmare for anybody that wants to do any kind of semi-accurate color calibration on these mobile devices, because it's like chasing and trying to catch a slippery pig. Right, so Giulio, do you have True Tone turned on your device?
I do. It's true though. It's True Tone. That's all you got to know. You don't got to question it. Just don't question it.
See, that's it.
No, you gotta have faith. I was gonna say what Craig said is that the iOS devices are calibrated very, very well. I would say that unless you have a technical reason that you need to have a specific type of color. Maybe you're photographing garments for like a garment factory or real high-end fashion where you're selling these very expensive outfits, wardrobes, whatever. then you're going to want, then it's a different type of shoot. You're not doing this with a phone. You have a tech, you have a full crew, you have a director, producer, makeup, hair, da 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 da. Very expensive budgets. Other than that, or if you're really critical on making prints, that's the thing. Is if we're really critical on making prints, you're not even really doing this on a phone necessarily. Like I got one of my old portfolios down here, and it's all printed on an Epson through a RIP, and it was very particular, and I color calibrated everything. And one portfolio took me about 3 days in a studio, and I actually slept in the studio. But nice. Thing is, like if I know my clients have an iPhone and I see that it looks good on my iPhone, I know it's going to look good on their iPhone. And I never got pushback ever. I mean, I was doing a shoot a few years back at the Virgin Galactic Space Station for a startup, and that's when I had my GH5, I think it was, and I Wi-Fi'd directly to my phone. I text messaged the photos over to the marketing director, and he's like, "Great, they look great." And I knew that he saw exactly what I saw, and so I could keep shooting. That's true. There was no like opportunity to be like, "Well, I'm in the middle of BFE."
It's like you remember Giulio, you remember a couple years ago, maybe it was more than that, but we were at this conference, and you were, let's say, getting under the skin of a conference attendee. You remember what I'm talking about?
Just that one time? It's like
no, but the conversation, I think these people, this woman, I think it was a woman, and she's an event.
Yeah, and the Phoenix, she was ready to like throw down, dude.
Yeah, because you were saying, I think the gist of the argument, or the discussion, let's call it, was that you were saying that there are more screens out there, and people are more apt to view your work on a screen than they are in print. So why not shoot for the screen and make that your baseline assumption versus the print your baseline assumption? She's like, oh, heresy.
Dude, I thought I was going to get a spork right in the goiter.
Yeah, you were like, you had insulted her religion or something. You were.
Oh my God. The thing in like in that retail world, especially in the retail photography world, it's really hard for a lot of the photographers to see what's happening in a different generation than theirs. I value prints. I think everybody's at some level values a print. But when you're photographing a young family, say they're in their late 20s, they just had their first child, maybe they want to print, maybe, but they're going to be looking at this on their phone.
Yeah.
Right, and so then
sharing it with their friends on their phone.
Right, and my whole point at Imaging USA and at PPE and WPPI, when I would do my classes, was always like, look, go to where your customers are, serve them for how they're consuming the content. And so the other thing was, at the time, was like, try doing a cinematograph or something other than just a still, because it does more than just display a still. And people are like, "Whoa!" And then I would always be like, "So how's your business?" "Oh, business is in a crapper." I'm like, put it together.
Exactly. A plus B equals, come on. All right, Craig, here's one for you, man. So all of us, and I'm sure everybody in the chat room and us on the show, have gotten this question, and that's, which camera should I buy? You get somebody that's going to get into photography, or they just need to buy a camera and take pictures of their kid. You're the authority because you're the photographer. Has that question been answered now? Like, which camera should I buy? Should we just say you don't need to go buy anything, just use your phone? Is that the new answer?
Well, that is for a majority of the people that ask me, yes. Yeah. I can tell them the cameras in the phone have gotten so good that for most people, that's going to be fine. But normally they're asking because they want to. I've had two recently. They're going on African safaris, right? The phone's not going to cut it for that.
Well, you need the zoom, right? Unless you have an intimate relationship with wild animals.
So the thing to ask is, what is it you're going to be shooting?
Right.
If it's going to be just your family, the phone may be fine. If not, maybe one of the mirrorless cameras. But if you're going to be someplace where you need be shooting sports, or going to be shooting African safari, right? You're going to need a DSLR with that can shoot fast, have that zoom capability. Actually, you get a mirrorless as well. There are some of them. I've had some friends that have taken mirrorless to those events and come out with great photos. That was nice of you
to concede that and throw me that bone. Thank you. I appreciate it. It's like, mirrorless doesn't really suck that bad, Frederick.
Well, and actually, the nice thing about mirrorless is the weight. If you're traveling with it, I typically, if I'm not shooting models, I only use my mirrorless.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Well, here's a question for both of you guys then. You brought up lenses and optics. There are several third-party manufacturers that make add-on lenses for mobile devices and iPhones, etc., that you can attach to the front of your lens. Giulio, do I need, if you're gonna move into G World, do you need to have a bag full of little baubles and bits and little lenses that can give you macro and telescopic shots and all that?
No.
I hate those, by the way. I mean, I bought a couple of them and I never ever used them. I end up giving them away.
I had one from a major brand. It was like a 4-in-1. I'm not going to mention the name, so I just don't think it's cool to do that. But it was so bad. Like the corners were so bad. They were the diffraction and just like the aberration was so bad. It almost looked like it was a 3D filter on there. Like it was like ridiculous. I'm like, dang, I spent a C note on this thing, so I threw it away. Then there is Moment, and there's companies like Moment, and they make from what I understand, the lenses are really good. They look like they're well made, and I would love to have them. The problem is, I'm on the iPhone replacement or upgrade program, whatever Apple calls it, and I get a new iPhone every year. All Apple has to do is change the lens mount slightly, and all of those lenses are useless. But like if they change it by like a millimeter, it's done. Yeah. Right. Yep. Possibly. So you're looking at
even that. You know, I mean, that's where I come in at it, because I look at it as, you know, when I look at those, I look at my precision designed mobile device, and I'm thinking of the years or whatever of development that went into it, and the billions of dollars that Apple dropped into this camera system, and the precision optics, and the robots that are finely smoothing the glass to within a atom's width. And then I'm going to go put $100 piece of glass in front of it and clamp it on there. No, it's like, it's like putting spinners on your brand new Tesla. It's like, really?
Well, if you look at, if you buy the full set of like the Moment lenses, and again, I think that they're really cool, but you're looking at about $400, maybe more. Yeah. You can buy, a decent mirrorless camera for that, or you can buy like a used 5D Mark I with a lens, and that's still a really good camera. Yeah. So, it's for me, it's a hard sell.
Yeah. My issue with it is I never have them with me when I want them. Right. I carry them with me, and I'll carry them and not use them, and then suddenly I do need them and not have them with me. Right. So, yeah.
Yeah, the best camera is the one you have with you.
It's like carrying a bunch of walnuts in your pocket or something.
Right.
Yeah, and I hate to hate on them, but every time I think of those, I think of like the whole point of this, of just taking this camera around with you, is that it's svelte, right? You just slip it in your front pocket, you don't even know it's there, and you whip it out, and Apple's made it really easy to get into the camera, and Android as well, but it's really easy to just swipe up, get in the camera, take your picture, and throw it back in your pocket. Like even with the the DxO, remember the DxO camera? When I saw that, and I still have one in a drawer back there, I was like, this is great, but I gotta take it out, I gotta make sure it's charged, I gotta flip this thing out, I gotta plug it in, wait for it to boot the app, and and is that overhead worth just taking the shot with the camera that came with the phone, right? So I don't know. Yeah, it depends on what you like. I don't know. So, Giulio, your bottom line is the best camera is the one you have with you, and your response to people that say, "Hey, which camera should I buy?" It's going to be
the best camera is the one that works really with your vision. I mean, like Craig was saying, you're going to go to Africa on a safari, you would be brainless to be like, let me just take my phone. If you're going to try to get close to like a lion or something. No. I mean, it really, for me, the way I shoot, a lot of what I do right now can be accomplished with my iPhone. Not all of it, a lot of it. But sometimes, here's another thing, and I know this wasn't in their feature topic, but the cameras really, we should think of them now as instruments, not as tools. If you're a musician, you play a certain type of bass because you want that sound, and then you play a different type of bass because you want that sound. When I see my Fuji X Pro 1, I bought that recently specifically because I wanted that color look and that response to tonality that I can only get with the X Pro 1 and the original set of primes that Fuji made for it. The iPhone 10 gives me a certain look. Canon has a certain look. So I would tell people, think of think of the cameras as an instrument and explore those instruments and see what is a fit for your vision. You can rent now really good stuff for cheap. Then at least have your iPhone. You have your iPhone to always fall back on. What I do with my business is I have a line item for rentals. And if the client's like, well, we don't want to pay that, I say, hey, no problem. I'm going to shoot this with my phone. Sometimes they're cool with it. Other times they're like, we think we're going to have a problem with our clients, so then let's go ahead and do a rental. And then I rent whatever camera and lights that I need for the shoot.
Yeah, yeah. You know, and I'll end this this particular segment with, you know, we've been talking about which camera should you buy, the perception of having a little camera and not being a professional because you're shooting with this little camera that everyone probably has. One of the other things that we didn't talk about, and I know there's a certain person that is in the chat room right now, and he knows who I'm talking about, but they are afflicted with gear acquisition syndrome to the bone marrow. And if you have gear acquisition syndrome and somebody's telling you, well, just use your iPhone all the time instead of using all that expensive gear, you know, what do you tell them, Craig? Like, I mean, is it because sometimes buying stuff is a catharsis, right? It is.
Yeah. You know, I think every photographer goes through a phase of doing that. Right. There's a lot of cool gear to get. But it's an analogy I often give is it's like a golf. A lot of people will change their golf club every year trying to buy a game. Right. They think the club's going to make them play better. And it's not really, you know, it is just a tool. It's not going to make you take better photos. It is you're better off spending it on, you know, repetition, taking a lot of photos, and education.
Yeah, repetition, right? And spend it on, I think that's it right there. You know, if you can, save that money that you would spend on gear that you don't need and go somewhere with it. Like you're like Iceland or to Utah or whatever, or go to where the photos are or do training courses online, you know, to get better with your gear. Yeah, so interesting stuff, guys. Thanks for this. And, you know, chat room is on fire. Thank you guys for all the activity in there. I love it. And thanks for all the likes and the thumbs up. I appreciate that. That helps us get the show noticed and get more people looking at this particular episode. All right, guys, I want to move on to the next topic, and that's copyright. So have you guys did you see that article?
I did.
With Russell Brammer. So, Craig, why don't you set it up for us? Tell us what happened with Russell Brammer.
So he had a photo on Flickr, and I believe it was for a town, and the town took the photo and put it as a banner on their website, or showing things to do in the town. And they'd cropped it and modified it a little bit. And he discovered this. He asked them to take it down, which they did. But then he sued them for copyright, and they fought back saying it was fair use.
And what did the court say?
The court agreed with them that it was fair use.
Yes, which is why they are now on This Week in Photo. So that was scary. I saw that come through. I think I was in Puerto Rico when that came through, and I was like, no, this can't be right. Like, how in the world could that be fair use? Somebody lifting something, because that. Unless I'm missing something, that means the entire internet is clip art now, you know, or stock photos, right? Because you don't have to pay for anything. Giulio, you saw this. Where do you fall on it? Were you upset, or did you agree with the court?
No, I mean, I was totally upset. It was ridiculous. You know, I thought, but I will say, I thought the case had something to do with the production company Violet Hughes for like a film festival or something, right?
Yeah. Yes, right. That's correct.
And that's what I found that to be just so bizarre, as it is in many of these infringement cases, where it was a film festival, which is something that we think of as promoting the arts, and to promote the arts, they're stealing from an artist.
Right. Yeah.
I was like, dude, I'm like, they took the crazy pill that day or something, because like I have an idea, and then someone's like, yeah, that's also a good idea, and then you know, it's scary. So. Because it's like, you know, I know it's being appealed right now by an attorney who's an avid photographer as well. I believe he's doing it for free, but that it brought back one of my cases that I went after with my attorney, Carolyn Wright, the photo attorney, by the way. She's pretty rad. we went after a major record label and a very well-known rapper, and we settled out of court. And that was because that was back in the MySpace days. They didn't want to buy my photo of this artist that I did for Village Voice Media. So they downloaded it from MySpace, poorly erased my watermark, and then re-uploaded it. And I was like, now you got to pay. And they're like, no, you were paid by the magazine. And I was like, that don't matter.
Wow.
There's so many, there's like for a million reasons why someone steals something, there's a million more for excuses of in defense and stuff. But they were in.
I wonder what this does to the industry. You know, when I see this, I'm like, man, I don't want to post anything online anymore. You know, because you know, does that mean I'm just putting it out in my front yard and you can just take it? And you know, if I do manage to go to court to try to settle, I'm just screwed anyway. You know, I mean, what do you think, Craig? If this happened to you, what would you do?
Well, if it happened to me, I would certainly appeal. I think the judge, right? He kind of applied the fair use. I think there's 4 or 5 different points you have to have, and he kind of was a little liberal, I think, in his interpretation of those points. I think this will get overturned in appeal, but yeah, I would keep fighting it because it's If not, then you're right. You shouldn't post any photos online anymore ever. Yeah, which is just not realistic. It's not going to happen. It would completely, change the careers of many photographers, right? That's how you get noticed.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's how you get found.
And that's a good segue into this next part that I want to talk about, and that's watermarking. And Giulio, I see you're in the chat starting that conversation now. So perfect. So watermarking, and Giulio, you're the let's call it the feces stirrer. I want to keep my non-explicit tag on this video. So you started this conversation online where you were basically being the nonconformist that you are, saying that watermarks don't matter. You don't need a watermark on, I think that's what you're saying. You don't need.
No. I was saying the camera doesn't matter, but I think we should start considering watermarks again.
Okay, give me the argument. Go ahead.
So I used to do I went through my careers like this regarding watermarks. Like for some years I used it, and then as I became more skilled and with the craft, which strangely enough I decided I didn't want to use it because I didn't want it to ruin the image. Then after I got into that beef with that record label, I started using it again. Then I stopped, and now I'm going back to it because our photography is too valuable. If you think about what would Instagram be or Facebook be without photography? Yeah, I mean, it'd just be a bunch of text.
Yeah, that's true.
It'd be freaking IRC,
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, yeah, but at the same time, the thing that bothers me about watermarks is when they detract from the aesthetic beauty of the shot.
Sure,
it's like again, you go through this work of. I'll use the analogy of the Tesla with spinners on it, right? Because you have this beautiful work that you've toiled over for hours to get it just right and it's color corrected and everything, and then you slap a bumper sticker on it, and send it out into the world, unless it's done right. And I've seen some people that actually like the watermark. Yeah, it's their logo, but it's actually part in some ways of the composition where it's always centered at the bottom. It's very discreet, and you kind of expect it to be there. Or like all of our friends, Renee Robin does this thing where she will move the watermark around inside the image itself, and it becomes part of the image on different planes and that sort of thing. So those kind of things I'm okay with. But when you en masse watermark everything, bottom right hand corner, 10 pixels up, 10 pixels in, boom, it's stamped. It takes away, from my perspective, it takes away from the beauty of the shot that you worked on, and B, what is it there for? I mean, is it there for branding? And your work itself, shouldn't you have a look that people just look at and say, oh, that's a G shot, Shouldn't your work itself be the watermark? And see, you're not from a legal standpoint, you're not stopping anybody from stealing it, right? So I mean, you may be putting a chain lock on the door, right? But you're not stopping. If they want to come in and get your flat screen, they're coming in to get your flat screen, right? So, go ahead, G.
All right. Well,
go ahead, Craig. You can take it.
I was just going to say, right, they can crop it off if it's in the bottom corner, right? And with Photoshop nowadays, it's 2 button clicks to remove most watermarks by doing content-aware fill. Yeah, it is just branding. It doesn't really, I don't think, offer that much protection.
Yeah.
Well, when I asked Carolyn Wright, my attorney, about this, because when I was doing my watermarks in 2013, they were more like branded watermarks. They were really integral to my branding. And, the reason why I started doing that, actually, think about people go to the Louis Vuitton store and you buy these purses that there's nothing but Louis Vuitton logos on it, right? Craig's got a Hard Rock shirt with a Hard Rock logo. Some people put the Apple stickers on their cars, and that's part of the branding. We work so hard for our photography. We should put that effort into the overall brand as well. Now, I agree that the photos, if you work hard and you have a unified vision, it'll say, hey, this is this is photos by Giulio. But it's kind of like it's like everything else with photography. It's a compromise. So if the watermark's going to be on there, might as well be branded front and center. People know that's an original piece. You want it off? Pay me, and it'll come right off. Pay me.
Right. I'll export
Pay me, sucker.
I'll export you a photo of your very own.
Yes. And I charge $75 for a research fee, by the way. Some people are like, do you think you have one of these? I'm like, pay me $75. I'll look. Then if I have it, this is what it costs. And it's nice, right? But anyways, here's the thing. There is a defense that most people use. It's called I'm looking over the notes that Carolyn sent me. It's called the innocent infringement defense, which is basically like, I didn't know I was stealing that. You got a copyright on there. That defense is immediately thrown out the window. Secondly, there's another clause in the law that will award you anywhere from $2,500 to $25,000 in damages if you have a watermark and the image is stolen, even if your image is not registered with the Copyright Office.
Okay.
Then if it's right now we're talking. Then if it's registered with the Copyright Office, then you can sue for additional damages. Okay. So now that's a big deal.
Now you're talking my language. So
right. Same. Now, also, Carolyn said that, if you have a watermark, make sure you put, next to your logo or whatever you have, copyright, and then your name. So if you do that, it's part of your branding. You register it. Now you're looking at it, and I feel for you guys. I'm the same way. Like, I want my images to be beautiful and be out there and be free, but someone's going to use it. I mean.
Yeah,
I'll tell you.
And what did you say the proper way to watermark is? So you have to have the copyright logo or the copyright symbol, the year, and your name?
Not the year, just the copyright. So it can be like copyright Giulio Sciorio. So she says it's always good to put a watermark on your photos for many reasons. With a copyright notice is even better.
Okay.
All
right, Craig. Craig, you're sighing over there.
I know. I've done the same where I've had watermarks, then I didn't for a while, then I did. Now I've gone back to not. I do think they really detract from an image, right? I'm of the Ansel Adams. I don't take an image, I make an image, and I spend a lot of time changing the image to make where I direct the eye to go where I want it to go through the image.
Yeah.
And if I slap a watermark on there, the eye's always going to go there, right? It's hard to hide. So I do not put watermarks on my images currently.
Starting tomorrow, you will be.
Well, it sounds like maybe I will. I do have an image out there I wish I had long ago. It is all over the internet, attributed to Gregory Crutzen, and I gave up doing takedown notices after 1,000 of them. It's now people, they're going to think it's his image.
Yeah.
But watermark would have solved that, right?
Yeah.
But it does detract from the image, I think.
Giulio, send me whatever info you can from Karen over that you feel comfortable with and that she's okay with, and I'll include that in the blog post. So
yeah, cool. Yeah, she's awesome. I mean,
and I'll link to her site in case people want to retain her for their own copyright
and
issues.
I think she's got a class or two on lynda.com as well.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, she's great. Yeah, we got to watermark our stuff, and I just think we have to at this point. But here's the thing: like, we put our images on Instagram for nothing, and we're making them loads of money.
Oh yeah.
So
and you put them up. That's a whole different show right there, or the terms of service show, right?
Right.
So,
but dude, you never know. Like, I had an attorney steal one of my photos for use on a promoting some NBC show. And I was like, yo, that's my photo. And she's like, well, I found it on the internet. And I'm like, you're an attorney. You should know better.
Yeah.
Oh, man. The world we live in. The world we live in.
Go slither back into your hole.
All right. Well, we'll put as much information as possible in the blog post for this episode over on thisweekinphoto.com. Let's move on to the Picks of the Week segment, guys. We're coming up on the end of the show. So, folks in the chat room, if you have questions for us, go ahead and get those posted, and we'll get to those in just a couple minutes. But before that, it's time for the Pick of the Week. Giulio, Sciorio, I'm going to let you go first, man. What is your Pick of the Week?
LumaFusion for iOS.
Aha, I just interviewed those guys. Yes, tell us about LumaFusion.
So LumaFusion is like having Final Cut 10 on your iPad or your iPhone. It's a full-featured video editing platform, but it's also very easy to use. Like, I bought it day one, and I just used it last week, and I was like, oh my god, why didn't I use this way
ridiculous.
before?
It is ridiculous. Yeah, 4K. It'll edit 4K video. 4K video, and I think you can do up to 3 layers of 4K video on top and up to 3 layers of audio on the bottom. So you could have a soundtrack, a voiceover track, and then your regular track in there. Plus, it's got titles in there. It's got all your transitions, and it just goes on and on and on. You're right. It's like Final Cut. It's like Final Cut.
Right, and the thing is, it's super easy to use, and I was not expecting it to be that easy. It took me like 10 minutes, and I was like, oh, I got it, boom, and I was. Like, the thing is with editing videos, you have all the gestures. So it's like you tap like this, and it cuts the video clip, and it's like you cut and you move it around. It's like the Minority Report. You're kind of like all enhance.
You're
and
channeling your inner Tom Cruise.
Yeah. And then, hold on.
Yeah,
now I am.
Just go back there and jump on that couch behind you. You'll be Oh man, I love it. Cool. So LumaFusion, I 100% agree with that pick. That is awesome. And they are integrated with another company that I interviewed called Narbox. And the Narbox is a hard drive. It's a wireless hard drive that you can connect to from your mobile device, so that it kind of solves the problem of, well, what if I don't have enough space on my device to edit these 4K files? You throw them on the Narbox, and the LumaFusion sees the Narbox as a source. You click on it, and you just start editing, and it works brilliantly. It's crazy. It's wireless and battery operated, rechargeable, in a shockproof case. So not bad at all. And Craig's buying stuff right now. I can tell. I
am. Yeah, that's always the problem with these shows.
I know.
I always have to go buy something.
So, Craig Colvin, give us your pick of the week, man.
Well, I'm going to do some shameless self-promotion and say my workshop, Utah Adventure at utadventure.com.
There you go.
It's coming up the end of August. As I said, it's 6 days with 3 models all through Utah, and shooting in slot canyons and salt lakes, salt flats, sand dunes.
Very nice.
Arches, the works.
Now, are these nude shoots? Or are they clothed shoots?
These are nudes. These are all. Most of them are nude. We do some clothing on typically at the Salt Lake and at the Salt Flats, but everything else is nude. Fine art nudes.
Very cool. Very cool. What's the price?
$3,500.
Okay. Is that US dollars?
Yes.
Okay. Just saying. Cool. Well, 2 good picks of the week. I don't have a pick of the week. My pick is both of your picks of the week. That's mine.
Nice. Yeah.
All right, guys. It is time for the Q&A segment. This segment where you guys can hit us up with a question in the chat room. If you want to make sure that we notice your question, make sure you preface This Week in Photo with the @ symbol, and Google will highlight the question so that we can get to it. First question up looks like it is from Trevor Panaki. Let me bring it up here. Oh, no, I'm in the wrong place. Yeah, let me read this. So he says, what about future proofing? What happens in the future when you need a high resolution print? Maybe the 12 megapixel iPhone is great for portable device delivery, but what about down the line? Giulio, What do you think?
Okay,
Are you screwed?
Wait, say again now.
He said, what about future proofing? What happens in the future if you've been shooting with this 12 megapixel iPhone and now down the line, somebody wants to make a billboard shot out of your work or use it in some other use that requires more pixels than 12 megapixels?
You're good for a billboard with 12 megapixels. I mean, you're good. You're good. I with my 5D Classic, which was 12 megapixels, I had a magazine cover, which was a pretty big image, draped on the side of a large building, like 14-story, 15-story building in downtown Phoenix. Good enough, man. 12 megapixels, it's good enough. It really depends on the viewing distance, right? So if you get close to anything, you're going to see all the pixels and the ink blots and all that. So, right. 35 millimeter film is right around 8 megapixels. So you're good to go. It's the quality of the image more than anything.
Yeah. Craig,
check out the iPhone Photography Awards too if you want to see some crazy stuff.
Craig, what do you say to that? You agree?
I do. It does have to do with viewing distance. But I've taken some very low resolution files, and there are programs that will upscale them using fractal. In fact, Photoshop will do a fairly good job of that to go like double the resolution. But there's also some programs that'll do even more. And I took a low resolution and made it a 6 foot by 4 foot canvas that hung on a wall, and people were standing a foot away from it, and you couldn't really tell that there was no pixelation or anything. I wouldn't worry too much about it. Right? If it's rare that you're going to have an old photo like that you're suddenly going to have to make big.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's and if you do, you can use one of these programs to up-res it.
Interesting. All right. I agree. Good answers. All right. The next question, which I was trying to find because I want to put it on the screen, and I can't find it, but I'm gonna read it first. It's from Stephen Scharf from the TWiP Pro community. Hey, Stephen. Stephen says, for mobile, where are the distinctions between mobile and desktop, where one or the other best meets the needs for specific use cases? And what about overlap and interface connections between the two different platforms? Connectivity, synchronization, overlap, backup, etc. So Stephen is smarter than me. So I'm going to see if I can boil that down into us speak. He's saying the distinctions between mobile and desktop, where the other one best needs to. I think that answers the question, right? So you use the tool that best suits the situation, but put a fine point on it, Giulio, or either one of you guys. What are the differences between the two? Like the main, like if you're looking at a mobile-based, full-on professional workflow versus doing the same editing on your Mac or Windows or whatever you're using. Like what are the deltas that you should be aware of? Like pin, the touch interface, you got to be aware of that, or space considerations. What do you think?
I mean, as far as like it's just as purely workflow.
Yeah. Let's take it from that standpoint.
Well, I mean, if you're using, I think I understand the question. I was just kind of reading it a few times. If you're using Lightroom CC, then the workflow would be the same for the most part. If you are using, say, like anything other than Lightroom CC on desktop, Capture One, Affinity, what's that other one? All the new ones that are coming out. Mm-hmm. That's going to be that stuff you can't really do on the iPhone. It's really just like it's like basically on the iPhone. It's like Lightroom CC if you want high grade raw editing. Everything else, it's all right, but there's like one of my favorite programs is Darkroom, and there's no histogram. I'm like, I wrote to the developer, I'm like, I can't work if I can't see how my pixels are distributed. And they're like, well, what do you need that for? And I'm like, yeah. What? You made the app, dude. I typically think of like, if you want to make a high quality print, then you're going to have a workflow that's designed around making high quality prints. And that's not necessarily a smartphone. If you are primarily making images for screen-based media, then it definitely has advantages to start with a device that is designed around its screen, which would be the iPhone, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you figure an iPhone image will still look pretty good if it's done right on a 12.9 iPad Pro screen-based media. So you'll be good there. But again, you can always use a dedicated camera for the screen-based media and the print. It's really all what you feel self-expressed using. Sometimes a tool will give you that boost of confidence. And if that's what you need to get out of your shell and go make some amazing images, then don't force yourself to use one or the other. But I would add to that, give yourself exercises that you're safe to have around shooting with an iPhone. So like, I'm going to go on a photo walk for 2 hours and only use an iPhone and only shoot RAW, and kind of work into it like that. Don't just, I'm going to go to Africa and bring only my iPhone.
Yeah. Put yourself in a safe box first, right?
Yeah. I hope that is a decent answer.
That was a deep question. Stephen, you'll have to expand on that in TWiP Pro, which Giulio is now a member of. Welcome, Giulio.
Yep, that's a great idea, actually.
Yep. Also, okay, here's another one from Stephen, and he says, where is it? I lost it. Here it is. He says, what's the most effective way to prototype the mobile platform and synchronizing with desktop? So I'm assuming what he's saying is, you're going to need to clarify that one as well, Stephen. Are you saying what's the best way to like get an edit or a post-production edit started on mobile and then continue editing on the desktop? Is that part of a workflow that either one of you have, Giulio?
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
That's CC.
Yeah, that's what I use. I use CC for mainly. I do selections on it and picking the photos I'm going to edit, and then I may do some rough adjustments because I'm traveling on a plane or whatever, and then have it sync. It syncs to my Lightroom when I get back to my desktop. All my pics are there. All the edits are there. It's a very effective tool. And it's seamless, syncing back and forth between the two.
Very cool. Giulio, you do the same?
Yeah, I mean, where it really starts to become amazing is like when you're we're messing on our phones all day long, and we have like a minute here, 2 minutes there. What's amazing is that when you maybe have a vast amount of shots, or even just a few that you want to do some tweaks on, and maybe you're in a doctor's office and you're waiting, like, yeah, I can go on Twitter, I can go mess around, but you have your photos in your pocket, pull it out, do some edits, experiment, leave it, and then come back to it on your desktop if you want to do it like that and finish it later. But
you guys aren't having any color calibration issues bouncing between mobile and the desktop and all that stuff?
I don't. I'm not making prints though. I'm not in-house.
Right.
If I was, I would make sure my desktop's calibrated, and I would be printing through a RIP.
Okay.
That's just how I would do it.
All right. Well, cool. Well, Stephen, hopefully that answered your question. We got the last question here is from Janet Robinson, and Janet says, "How do you find out if your picture has been stolen?"
There's a couple of ways to do that. You can there's a website called TinEye, T-I-N-I, where you can type in a URL of the photo or upload the photo, and it will go show any matches it finds. Google also has a reverse image search where you can, in fact, you can click on an image, any image, right-click on it, and if you're in Chrome, it'll bring up a go find this image on the web. And then for
Which
something
may ruin your day, right? It may ruin your day.
For a little more robust, I use a service called Pixie, Pixsy, where I upload my images, and they will constantly scan the web, and they will show me any matches. And if there is a match, they have a button to either do a takedown notice or to actually, if you have, it is an actual copyright violation, to file a copyright claim against it.
Interesting. And then at which point you contact Karen and,
well, they have lawyers that will take care of it.
Oh, really?
Wow. And they will offer, they have different ranges of what they will, they'll send an invoice for you. They can, but if you want to get damages, yes, then you can have to refer it to your own lawyer.
Love it. All right, perfect. Janet, that was a great question. And Craig, you have to throw those links in the show notes so I can put them in the doc. Very cool. All right, guys, that's it. Great questions from the audience. Thank you, everybody, for participating and keeping that vibrant chat going. There's always a party in the TWiP chat rooms during our live streams. I appreciate that. Makes me jealous. But this is the end of another episode of This Week in Photo. Giulio, Sciorio, where can people go to connect with you, see your work, hire you, and otherwise harass you going forward?
Small camera, big picture, or put my name in a search engine. I'll pop right up.
If they can spell your name.
If you spell it right.
You gotta change your name to G-S.
See,
you know.
The thing is, the people that find me, you know, it's a good fit.
Your name is a built-in IQ test. I like it.
No, not that. It's like basically like if someone finds me, I know they really want to find me. So.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
Or just go to small camera, big picture. Easy.
There you go. Smallcamerabigpicture.com. Very cool. All right, Craig Colvin, what about you, man? Where can people go see your work, sign up for that awesome workshop you're doing in Utah, amongst other things?
CraigColvinPhotography.com, or you can also find me on Instagram, Craig Colvin Photo. I post a photo a day up there of all my. Lately, it's all been my Iceland photos. So yeah,
very cool.
Those are the two places to find me.
Yeah, and you notice I don't think I asked you the question about you. You torturing models on icebergs.
Oh, I did not.
In Iceland. I saw your post about you. Like, what happened? Give us, as we end the show, give us a story of you destroying that model out there.
So it was a lagoon of icebergs where they were calving off of a glacier and then flowing out to the sea. And so she waded out in the water. In fact, all the models would wade out into the water. But she was brave enough to actually climb up onto one of the icebergs. And it was like a cheese grater. She came away bloody and bruised from that, but she was out there for a good 20 minutes, laying on this iceberg and doing anything for the shot.
And how do you find these models? Like, you were saying that this model, that particular model, was.
She was a local Icelandic model. She's the only fine art nude model in Iceland. But you find them on Model Mayhem is where I typically will find the models.
Okay. All right.
You find the models, or you find the models and the mayhem. You bring the mayhem.
Yeah, that's right.
I love it. All right, guys. Well, that's it for another episode of This Week in Photo. Remember, guys, if you want to stay up to date on all things photography, be sure to subscribe to this here podcast at thisweekinphoto.com/subscribe, or you can just subscribe to us on YouTube. If you're in the chat room now, just click the subscribe button. If you're watching this later, also click the subscribe button, and you'll be notified. Make sure you click that bell so that you're notified when we go live again, which incidentally is every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Pacific. So put it on your calendar. And that's it. Thanks for joining us, everyone. And you know the deal. It's time to take that lens cap off.